Welcome to Lantern Voices, a podcast by Lantern Publishing and Media. The opinions and information expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Lantern Publishing and Media Incorporated. Hi, welcome to Lantern Voices, a podcast by Lantern Publishing and Media. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Louisa, and I'm your host today. In this episode, we'll chat with Mark Peters. Mark is a photographer and the author of our upcoming book, Voices of the Herd. For over 10 years, he's been hanging out with some of the sweetest creatures to walk on Earth, cows. Mark immerses himself in the everyday lives of cow residents of farmed animal sanctuaries. He earns their trust by walking respectfully alongside the herd, coming to know each animal personally. His ability to earn the trust of the members of the herd has resulted in numerous colleagues having his ear chewed on and even getting chased but never caught by playful puppy cows. He and I chatted a lot about those adorable little creatures. Puppy cows can be playful, but they have no idea how strong they can be. I learned a lot from our conversation, and not only about cows and their puppies. Mark and I talked about photography, about choosing the right light for a cow portrait, and about the amazing work done by farm sanctuaries. There are moments that this episode turns into a real love letter to sanctuaries. Mark has spent so much time with them that you can tell he has witnessed the daily joys and struggles that sanctuaries go through. So maybe after listening to this episode, go show some love to your favorite sanctuary. And don't forget to pre-order your copy of Voices of the Herd. The book comes out on October 14, and you can find the pre-order link on this episode's description. As usual, don't forget to stay until the very end for special announcements, which may or may not include a discount coupon. Now, let's welcome Mark Peters. Hello, Mark. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. So excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Louisa.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. It's very nice to have you on our podcast. I introduced you to our listeners a little bit in the podcast introduction, so I'm going to jump right into the questions, all right?
Okay.
I want to start right in the beginning of the book. I want to start on practically page 1, the dedication. You wrote, "For those who bridge the gap between species with kindness." Why did you choose this particular dedication?
Yeah, kindness. When you nurture it, you can never run out. And yet, I think it's the resource that the world aches for the most, isn't it?
Mhm.
With regard to the dedication, I intended it to be wide in scope to acknowledge all the people who are already showing kindness for animals in myriad ways, but also to include those who are currently in the process of widening their circle of compassion to include other species.
Mhm.
As you know, I've spent a large chunk of time in the farmed animal sanctuaries over the past decade, sharing time with the animal residents and photographing the cows for this book. Sanctuaries are my church. They're sacred spaces where the abused, the neglected, and discarded are treated with dignity and respect. They're cared for as individuals with personalities and individual needs. Many arrive confused and scared, understandably, considering the circumstances from which they're rescued. Many are scarred emotionally and sometimes physically. A lot of them distrust humans. The sanctuary staff, part of their job is to care for the animals, not only to treat their medical needs, but also to show them that human hands are for loving and for care, and not just to be cruel.
Mhm.
I walk into a field of rescued animals and watch the staff care for them with tenderness and respect, and it reminds me to do the same for every living being.
Would you say that's a good example of making this bridge between species with kindness?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But it's not just something that, sanctuary staff
Mhm.
can do. They have this opportunity every day, but everyone can be kind to animals. One definition of veganism is that it's the belief that all living beings are deserving of kindness and respect. When you adopt that perspective, you naturally want to remove animal products from your life and want to participate in activities that exclude or other species that don't exploit them.
Not exploit them is the right word. You just said it because I think we talked to Bill Crane, I think he's one of the sanctuary people that you talk about as well, and he's one of our authors. And when he was here in the podcast, he was talking about children who go visit the sanctuary and how they bond with the animals in a very respectful way, and how it is mostly like the adults that start teaching the kids to see animals as different than humans when children are just like to a point they even want to go like hang out and play with the chickens. They're like, hold on. They have different needs than yours, to just be careful. But yes, go ahead and go play with the chickens. So I think it's a very
You're
interesting when you talk about bridge. That's why I selected this question specifically, because when you talk about bridge, I think it's a very nice idea when you talk about like going there and including those animals in our lives as individuals and not as merchandise and not as
Mhm.
food.
Yeah, right. Isn't that the case? When we're children, we naturally just kind of have this outpouring of love for everyone we meet, people and dogs, puppies, chickens, cats. But we learn as we grow up, we learn to value some humans and not others. We learn to value some species and not others. I think widening our circle of compassion. It's a process, right? It's one of the reasons why I feel strongly about meeting people where they are when I talk with them. I don't judge. I can't. I didn't become vegan myself until I was 41, and I'm still widening my circle of compassion. Aren't we all?
Yeah, that is so true. And I don't know if you heard other episodes of the podcast before, but the listeners are very aware of my vegan journey because I started vegetarian and now I'm every day more and more vegan. I am still not perfect, but I have the best days are more now than the bad days. So we're getting there. We're almost there. And I think that this approach of non-judgmental approach and kindness and other people authors that I talk here, my friends at Lantern, my Lantern community, and even some friends that I have, they're already there. The way that they're like, okay, I see that you want to get there, so let me help you and not judge you. And that's
Yes.
important to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Celebrate all the victories. That's right. And yet, it's yeah. I don't go around, talking about the realities of industrial animal agriculture unless people ask. I don't. When we go out to dinner with friends and they order the burgers, I don't talk about where that burger came from. Everybody around me knows I'm vegan. If they have questions, they know to ask, and I am happy to impart any wisdom I have.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm like, I'm gonna keep it to myself, but if you want to talk about it and if you wanna ask, then I have even books, I have references, so
That's right.
yes.
That's right. And that's what social media is for, right? We can share things there. We can go out and protest. We can get our voice out there in all kinds of ways, and people can choose to listen or not. They can tune in or not. They can move away from our social media, unfollow us. That's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book. I knew that my own voice was pretty limited. I'm not a name photographer. I don't have a big following, but a book that can be shared, that can be disseminated, that can be kind of set out into the world, and people can find it if they're interested and want to know more about how the emotional lives of these beings that we generally only know from commercials for dairy or beef.
Yeah, that is so true. And speaking of your book, I'm gonna jump to my next question. which is you mentioned waking up early to take advantage of the soft light for the photos. And I noticed that most of the cows portrayed in your book have soft, kind expression on their faces. I wanted to know, did you choose the lighting for that reason, like to contribute to the narrative? Is it something that all photographers just love morning light, or you're just a morning person?
Yeah, right. I love that you noticed the softness in their expressions. That's exactly what drew me to cows in the first place. The morning light does help, but what I wanted to capture is their gentleness and presence. If you meet a cow and look them in the face, you see their eyes are these deep, dark pools of emotion. Speaking of, their physicality, yeah, they're one of the largest land animals that you can meet safely, mostly. uh, when I've gone on sanctuary tours, and it's time to meet the cows, you can just see how the eyes of guests get so large when they approach these beings who are sometimes 6 foot tall and yet are gentle and you can tell that how much they enjoy being petted. They're just these walls of being that are velvety, soft, and warm. But yeah. But regarding the morning light, evening light, there's a kind of a visual language to it. It's very soft light. It's very flattering light, and I do love that light. It's much better for photography because you don't have the harsh shadows that you would in midday. But also, yeah, I'm a little bit of a morning person. I liked when I was given permission by Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary in Maryland to come and photograph their animal residents whenever I wanted, as long as I gave advance notice. I drive out, 4:30 and show up, and if I didn't catch the herd in my headlights as I was driving down their mile-long driveway, then it's a matter of trying to find them on a sanctuary that is over 400 acres in size. And let me tell you, Louisa, this image we have of cows who just stand out in the middle of the field and chew their cud and gain weight, it couldn't be further from the truth. It is amazing. The more space you give to a cow herd, the more they'll take. The sanctuary founders put a tracking collar on one of the cows so that they could find the herd when they need to go out and give medicines and, just in case they want to find them for any reason. And one of the sanctuary founders, Terry Cummings, showed me on an app just in the autumn, especially the cows will just go for miles.
Mhm.
They know where all the best grazing spots are. They know where the lushest grasses grow, where the sources of water are when they're away from the barns, and they'll just go and go and go. It's amazing. But yeah, trying to catch up with them when you see the morning light is approaching, and you haven't found them, and you're running through fields and woods. It's pretty invigorating.
I
But
can imagine. I can imagine. I was thinking when I was reading your description and now you were telling me, I keep thinking maybe that's obvious for some people, but when I think about elephants in the wild or when I think about other like herd animals in the wild, I usually don't think about cows behaving this way. And when you describe it, it's like, yeah, I don't know, if maybe the world was a little bit different, I could go into a park or something and just see a herd of cows passing by. And that will be yeah, they're amazing, they're huge, and it's yeah. Sorry, keep going.
but you know what? It's funny you mentioned elephants. When we think about other charismatic megafauna like elephants, gorillas, or dolphins, we think of them as having these rich social lives. But the same is true of cows. We just don't study them. We just don't promote them or talk about them in the same way.
Yeah, yeah, I understand why you don't want the world empathizing with something that people eat, but I think and I'm gonna go back to this question later, but I think that's one of the things that it impact me the most in your book is how the way that you tell the stories of each individual, the way that you describe all that, it gave me the feeling that certain things that were done with these individuals, the certain things that happened with them, if they were done to a different species, if they were done to a human, that would be like a horrible, horrible crime, or it would be something that will be punished by harsh laws. And
Mhm.
that we don't see that happening with cows. But back to what you were talking about, if we see the level of communication they have, the relationship, interpersonal relationship that they have with each other, when we see that on whales, when we see that on dolphins, everybody's like trying to communicate with them and freaking out, but then they don't even think about that with cows.
No, no, that's true. They really don't. Yeah, you're right. If what we do to animals as part of standard industrial animal agriculture, if we did those same things to dogs and cats, we would be locked up. You're absolutely right. The cruelty that happens to them, it's a crime story without the actual crime committed.
Mhm.
Animal cruelty laws in the United States don't protect farmed animals. For the animals to be seized from farms, in most cases, the circumstances must be horrific. For example, situations in which the animals are starving.
Yeah, and even so, like you mentioned in your book, situations in which the cows were rescued, and I've spoken with other authors. I've spoken with Isabella LaRocca Gonzalez, also a photographer, and she published Censored Landscapes with us last
Mhm.
year. And she talks about how when she was trying to get those landscape photography, how she would see the way that people hide the animals, the way that people try to take them out of like people's sightings, just so nobody asks questions, just so they don't have to worry about their well-being that much. I wonder, like you mentioned in your books, some of those cows in those books, all of them are the lucky few and not the rule. So I keep imagining what happens that with other individuals that don't have the same luck as the ones that you agree.
Like I mentioned, I've been on many sanctuary tours.
Mhm.
I love to hear the stories. I love to hear the stories told by the sanctuary founders, but I also enjoy hearing the questions that are asked by visitors. And visitors are always kind of astounded to learn that really all of the animals that who are rescued and are living in farmed animal sanctuaries, they don't come from factory farms. They don't come from these big industrial farms that we hear about. They come primarily from ma and pa farms, from small dairies, from small beef farms, these small organic farms. The cruelty is pervasive at any size farm,
Mhm.
but the animals who actually live in the kind of the large industrial size farms, they don't escape. The security around those facilities is, kind of guarantees that really no one gets out.
Yeah, and they have a lot of law backup as well, from what I've learned reading
Mhm.
Lantern's books, mostly.
Yeah, that's right. I have both of the books that you mentioned, but they're both excellent books. By
Yes.
the way, to all listeners, when you are ordering your copy of Voices of the Herd, please make sure that you order these other books as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we usually say this in the end of the podcast, but for the listeners, we have a special discount coupon on ebooks for all books that are featured in the podcast. So I will give the actual discount coupon all the way in the end just to make sure everybody stays with us.
Oh, by the way, I saw the ebook version of Voices of the Herd, and it is excellent. I don't always love photo books in ebook format, but wow, whoever did the ebook for Voices of the Herd, kudos to them. It's beautiful.
Oh,
You won't lose anything if you get the ebook.
that's great to hear. I will extend the compliments because we have a meeting later on today with the team, so I will definitely share the words with them. But yeah, getting back on track
Yeah,
after a little
sure.
promo spot, we were talking about the crimes that are committed against those individuals. Basically, I know they are not officially crimes most of the time, but they would be if they were committed to a different species. So I was wondering, when you tell people outside of the animal rights community about the stories that you witness, about the stories that you talk in your book, how do they usually react?
Usually they're horrified. I mean, everybody likes a rescue story, right? A rescue story means that someone was saved. A rescue story means that although there was an atrocity committed, the victim came out on top. They came out saved. Something heartbreaking happened, but in the end, that individual was given another chance at living a good and a happy life, a fulfilled life. So many people have said that they love the stories that I share. I don't really get that much in the way of comments from non-vegans about the perpetrators of the would-be crimes. But you can tell that from the comments that they were touched, that they saw something horrible happen to another sentient being, and it didn't end tragically as it could have. That person that individual was saved. There was a reason for the book, to share the stories and to get them out there. There are so many stories. Yeah, very, very positive reactions. Thank you for asking.
That's good to know. I think there's ways and ways to tell people about what's happening. At least from my experience, the most effective ways I've seen happening is usually short. So you're not telling a 5-part epic, like you're telling a
Mhm.
short and sweet story. The way that you described, though, was one of the first times I've seen it done in a way that particularly touched me, was describing them as people. So when you read the captions, like the text that comes with the images, when you read the stories in the book, I felt like I could turn to a friend and tell them a story without at any point mentioning the species of the individuals
Oh,
involved in the story, and they would have a reaction that is appropriate to the story that I was telling, and they might even think that I was telling a story that happened to a human.
oh, that's lovely. Yeah, no, I really like that.
One of the stories in particular that is about, I mean, there are so many that go through this way, unfortunately, but there's one of the stories that talk about the cows hiding their babies. And
Yeah.
I had just listened to a podcast before telling a story of a human mother who was going through abuse. The neighbors called the police and they were like, "It's just the woman." And then they found out that she had a child, but she was hiding the child from the abuser and from other people because she didn't trust people to help her protect herself or her kid anymore. So I just heard the story coming from a human, and now I'm hearing from
Oh,
her baby. It was very, very similar.
yeah, right, right. I love that you had that reaction when reading the stories. I have been accused of being anthropomorphic when describing other species. It's hard enough sometimes to know when we look at each other, when we're talking to each other, how the other one is feeling,
Mhm.
let alone another species. But when you see rescued cows led into a new pasture and they're jumping and leaping and running around, or when you have a mother bending over their calf and licking them tenderly and returning again and again and again, kind of hovering nearby like a helicopter parent,
Mhm. Yeah.
when one of their friends dies and you see the cows approaching one by one and licking their friend and mooing, how can you not say that, they're experiencing all these different emotions, excitement, love, grief? I think that we can look at the behaviors of another species. And when we see those behaviors happening over and over, we can at least surmise that they are experiencing emotions that are as important to them as ours are to us.
We know the vegan activist community is out there, and we want to connect with each and every one of you. We are proud supporters of initiatives that fight for a more compassionate world for all animals, humans and non-humans alike. For more content on vegan activism, follow Lantern on social media. We are Lantern Publishing and Media on Facebook, at Lantern PM on Instagram, and at Lantern PM Official on TikTok. When you were spending your time with the herd and getting to know everybody, what did you learn from observing those emotional bonds you mentioned, but specifically the friendship bonds between the individuals?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. How much time do we have? Well, let me just give you a few examples, and I won't even tell you what I learned. You can, you draw your own conclusions. At Love and Arms Farm Sanctuary in Colorado, there is a cow named Tito. Now, Tito lost his close friend and was visibly despondent for months. But then this cow named Lucky was rescued. As always happens at sanctuaries, they kind of sequester the new arrival for some period of time to give them vaccinations, to check their, make sure that they are healthy and so forth before they introduce them to the herd. Well, Tito was having none of that. He evidently decided that Lucky was going to be his new best friend, and he broke the fence between them. Literally, he went in there to meet his new friend, and that was a couple of years before I met them, and they were still as close as ever. I watched them playing together, pushing, kind of bending down very low, facing each other, pushing their heads against each other, and kind of moving around like they were, kind of like charging each other. But it was all in play. It was so much fun to watch. Very heartwarming. And then there's Lancaster Farm Sanctuary in Pennsylvania. There's Mickey and Moose. Now, Mickey, when you go into their pasture, there's a big Holsteins, huge Holsteins, very, very large cows. And Mickey is the forthright. He'll walk right up to you and want to be friends, and he's very interested in you. Moose is kind of shy and timid. He'll hang back and he'll watch to see what Mickey does. When Mickey has given his approval, then Moose will come forward and also want to participate in whatever's going on.
I was wondering, is it the ones you mentioned that one is a little more shy and the other
Uh-huh.
is the icebreaker?
Once the us, right? That's right. That's exactly the way it is. Now, once Moose knows who you are, once Moose is acquainted with you, no problem. He'll come up to you anytime you enter. But you can just see him. I mean, it is clear as day how he hangs back and he's like, "What do you think, Mickey? What do you think, Mickey? Is it okay? Or is this new arrival, this stranger? Are they okay? Oh, okay, all right. Well, then I wasn't scared of anything. Hi, stranger.
I love this story so much. Usually I get along well, like as a person, I'm okay with small groups of people. But when there's larger groups, I usually hide behind my more extroverted friends. So
Oh my gosh.
in the story, I was like, I feel you. I know what it's like. You wait for your extroverted friends to make like all the introductions and get to know everybody. And then usually they'll be like, okay, this person has a similar vibe to you. Let me introduce it to you. And then you just chat one-on-one while your extroverted friend is having the time of their life.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, definitely. It's perfect. And then meanwhile, you're kind of looking for the family dog to kind of hang out with. But yeah, social dynamic among cows very similar to people.
This is amazing. I learn a lot. I learn a lot reading the book because I didn't know how similar in regards to familial bonds and in regards to friendship bonds they are to us. And that was very lovely.
Oh, thank you. There are so many more in Voices of the Herd available now.
And are there any, or is there any particular story that touched you the most in this book? If yes, can you tell us?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. So at Critter Creek Farm Sanctuary in Florida a number of years ago, the founders they got a call, they got a text from the South Florida ASPCA. There was a cruelty case outside of a town called Sunrise. The herd there had been left to their own devices in a lot with no grass, only intermittent rainwater for sustenance, and for months they just starved. When the authorities showed up, there was this herd, and they were surrounded by their dead and dying, mothers and friends. They were like walking skeletons, some of them, and some of them had been branded these big, ugly brands. The founders, they at first they were like, well, when they've received the text and they just read the text, they thought, well, we can take in a few of these cows. When they saw the pictures, they said, we're taking the entire herd of 40 cows.
Wow.
And we're going to give them a home, and they will never be separated. They will have each other for the rest of their lives. What's kind of funny is that 10 of the cows were pregnant at the time, and they didn't know. So they actually rescued 50 cows
Whoa.
from this one cruelty case at one time. Extraordinary. I mean, who does that? Who does that? They just had the faith that they would have the funds to care for them, but they couldn't say no.
Did they have cows in the sanctuary before?
They did. They did. Critter Creek is now the largest bovine sanctuary in the country. They have something like 180 cows, as well as several water buffalo who come from dairies from buffalo. I guess water buffalo cheese. I don't know, something crazy, and. But yeah, it's a very large sanctuary. When I visited, this was a couple of years after the herd known as the Sunrise Moose. After they were rescued, the sanctuary is beautiful. Where these cows live now, there are rolling green hills, these huge trees laden with Spanish moss. It really looks like a kind of a place out of time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you walk into the herd, when I walked in, you can, well, we drove a buggy in to the edge of the herd, and those who were friendly, and that's most of them at this point. There's been a lot of healing in those. There were a lot of healing in those intervening years, and the cows would come up, and they would get cookies, treats, and lovings. So that's a lot of the cows. A lot of the cows will at least approach for treats, and then they'll walk away. But if you walk into the herd, there are still some who they will just kind of scatter, like to the edge of the outer edge of the orbit of the herd, and will just stare. And you can read the kind of the broken trust and even kind of hatred. They have been abused in such a way that they are broken. And yeah, it's a joyful experience to be among that herd. You see how they support each other. There's joy there and contentment and support. They support each other. It's just beautiful and heartbreaking and heartwarming all at the same time. And yeah, my heart sings whenever I walk into a herd of cows. But yeah, there's just something special. There's about that story that it's just really, really, yeah, it's the one that kind of gets to me.
Yeah, it is very impactful. Absolutely. And do you know if the herds, when there's like a large herd of cows, do they split into two separate herds, or do they always stay together forever and ever? Do you know that?
I'm sorry, do you mean if a herd is rescued at once?
Yeah, because in this case, there were like 40, then 50 when they were all together as a herd, but then they joined a sanctuary that already had cows. So
Right.
is there like a limit? They're like, no, there's too many people around me. I need to split and go hang out in a smaller group, or they always stick together.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, yeah. No, they don't. They kind of travel as one huge
Mm.
kind of swarm. But then once they are in a location, and this is all in the same large pastures. They have at least I think at least two, maybe three. I don't know, large pastures available to them, and they kind of get rotated so that the grass can grow back. But yeah, they kind of move as one large unit. But then when they have kind of settled in a new area for, some period for an hour or two, then they'll just kind of spread out and kind of do their thing, forage and nap and so forth. But
Got
then when they're ready to get up and go, they all get up and go, and they all move to their new location in their pasture, and then do it all over again.
Oh, that's nice. Strength in numbers.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, yeah. A herd really is this kind of unit. It's not like they're kind of mindlessly following the leader. They have they have a matriarch. They have someone who leads them, and it says, "Okay, it's time to go to the new place." And they go, they follow, and then they enjoy the new spot.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Well organized. Do you have any anecdotes, any favorite moments of your work in this book that you share with your friends or family? Something more on the funny side?
Oh, let's see. I know what you're asking. You are curious about that sentence in my author bio that says that I've been chased by puppy cows. Uh, no, well, I'll tell you that quickly, but yeah, it's happened. That's happened a few times, and I'll tell you what. Two things: when you're wearing muck boots, it is very hard to run, and you will never outrun a cow. I read that cows are capable of running between 17 and 25 miles an hour, and those are Usain Bolt speeds. And you in your muck boots are never going to outrun a cow. Uh, but fortunately, the cows who have chased me have just done so playfully.
Mhm.
There is one cow at Stargazing Farm Animal Sanctuary in Maryland named Petey. I was like, oh, I gotta photograph Petey. Petey's so awesome. He walks up to whenever he sees someone at the fence line, he walks up and he wants to give kisses, and he will scrape your arm and your face with his sandpapery tongue. He's so friendly. But the founder said, I don't entirely trust PD 100%. He's going through his terrible twos, which means, some cows, steers typically will, at some point in their young life, they decide that they want to play, and you are going to be their play buddy. So we went into the sanctuary in the pasture with PD, and I was doing my usual kind of thing when I'm photographing people, in which I kind of dance around a little bit and kind of try to make them smile. I try to get to capture photos of the cows from different perspectives, from their eye level and from below and from side to side. And Petey took that as an invitation to play, and he chased me kind of around and around a tree that I had to put between them. There's the photo of him in the book shows him kind of looking at me from behind a tree, and yeah, that was we were like, as long as we have this tree, we're good. But as soon as we kind of make a dash for the gate, I don't know, we're in trouble. So we just kind of waited until Petey got interested in kind of looking in the other direction, and then we made a dash for it. But love Petey.
That sounds funny. I imagine you said you can hardly outrun a cow, and I can imagine that a puppy cow with all the energy of puppies might be even harder.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Sometimes the best strategy with puppy cows is to make yourself as boring as possible. This is what I've learned. Whenever I meet a new herd, I always say, "Who do I need to watch out for?" And it's usually a puppy cow. So I'll go in and I'll see that cow. I'm watching that cow out of the corner of my eye, and I know when that cow is getting kind of interested. And what I'll do is I'll kind of like drop down, I'll sit, I'll put my head down, and I'll just be like, nope. I am just so boring. I'm so boring, puppy cow. You do not want to play with me because I am not all that interesting. Just don't be interesting when you're around puppy cows.
That's a strategy that I think applies for children of many species.
Uh, yeah.
We're getting closer to our time here in the podcast, so I'm going to go to our last question, which
Oh,
is usually I try to wrap up the podcast with a moment of hope. so we can feel a little inspired after listening to the episode. What about this project brought you hope?
At the most basic level, recognizing the rights of all species to live according to their nature, free from oppression, puts veganism on the right side of history. Where this book project is concerned, I think it's hard for most of us to wrap our minds around a figure like 30 million cows slaughtered each year in the United States alone, let alone the billions of land animals. But photographs and stories, they have the power to turn abstraction to connection and even empathy. This book fits into the larger mission of sanctuaries, recent documentaries, media online like the dodo and others that show individual animals. They provide stories about individual animals and letting people kind of make that connection. Lantern Publishing and Media has published many books that challenge the conventional view of animals. In recent years, there have been several books about the emotional lives of animals that have been bestsellers. There's so many more voices now for the animals, speaking for the animals, than when I became vegan. And that hasn't been all that long. There are podcasts like this one and We Animals Media shining a spotlight on exploited animals. So I feel like you have to have hope. It's only a matter of time until the worldview changes and most people and institutions treat other species with compassion.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. This is a very hopeful thing to keep on our hearts as we wrap up this episode. Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you very much for being here with us, Mark. Before I let you go, is there any message you want to leave to our listeners? Any projects you're working on? Any links you want us to share? We can add to the podcast description.
No, honestly, right now, currently, this book and promoting this book, marketing this book, and encouraging readers to share reviews of the book, honest reviews on wherever they bought the book. This is the only project that's consuming me right now.
I'm going to add to the podcast description the link to the book on our website. I will also add links for reviews because you can, to each one has their own preferred platform, but there's some platforms that help us more. And Goodreads is one of them. So I'll definitely add the link to the book page on Goodreads on our podcast description. Thank you very much, Mark. It was a pleasure to have you. It was a pleasure to talk to you today.
It was so enjoyable. Thank you so much for inviting me, Louisa.
Of course, and I'll see you soon.
Take care.
This was our interview with Mark Peters, author of Voices of the Herd. If you have been with us for a while already, you know what's coming up. So here's an announcement for our new listeners. You can get any book ever featured in this podcast for 25% off on our ebook store. Go to lanternpm.org, click on ebooks, and then on podcast. Select the book you want and add the coupon Lantern Voices 25 on checkout. That is Lantern Voices, like the podcast, and the numbers 2 and 5, all together, no spaces. On other housekeeping news, we are now on Patreon. You can now become one of our patrons, and just for $5 a month, you can support our work here at Lantern, which includes this podcast, and of course, earn some perks along the way. We have 4 tiers to choose from, each one with different amounts and different perks. Go to patreon.com/Lantern Publishing and Media and become one of our patrons today. We're going to leave the link here on the podcast description to make it even easier for you. Thank you so much for joining us in another episode of Lantern Voices. We will chat again next month, so stay tuned to our social media for news about our next episode. We're probably going to drop some spoilers there, so if you don't follow us yet at Lantern Publishing and Media on Instagram, you should definitely go ahead and do so. The link is also here on the podcast description. Thanks so much for being here with us today, and I'll see you soon. Bye!